their allies should have suffered the same losses. A few moments later, Hong Lian's forces arrived near the battlefield and were greeted by Zhang Yi. Despite Zhang Yi's incredible shooting speed, a werewolf mutant managed to block most of the shots. Zhang Yi finally found an opponent that piqued his interest. The werewolf quickly realized that the sniper was positioned too far away, and Zhang Yi continued firing. Zhang Yi knew that shooting was far less exhausting than deflecting so many bullets. Before long, the werewolf's body started to show signs of injury. He knew he wouldn't be able to keep blocking much longer. However, he was confident that the soldiers had already prepared missiles to strike Zhang Yi. Within seconds, the first missile was launched toward Zhang Yi's shelter, a strike powerful enough to breach it with ease. However, Zhang Yi possessed a power they couldn't comprehend. Using his dimensional ability, he was able to send the missile into another dimension. The soldiers panicked as Zhang Yi retaliated with gunfire. One of them shouted, ordering the others to launch the remaining missiles immediately. They knew that if they hesitated, they would all die. In a coordinated assault, they fired all the missiles at once, convinced of their impending victory. However, just like before, the missiles vanished, leaving everyone in shock. Their strategy had completely failed. Zhang Yi then sent the absorbed missiles back at them, causing massive destruction. The werewolf, who had previously struggled against Zhang Yi's bullets, now had to deflect missiles with his bare hands to prevent his team from being obliterated in an instant. The missiles struck the ground near the vehicles, detonating with immense destructive force. The overwhelming effort of shielding his comrades drained the werewolf's energy, and he started breathing heavily. Worried for his troops, Hong Lian quickly ordered a retreat to avoid further losses. The soldiers began deploying smoke grenades to obstruct Zhang Yi's vision, allowing them to escape in their vehicles without taking further damage. However, Zhang Yi was determined not to let them flee without suffering more casualties. Calling them cowards, just like Wing Hai's team, he opened fire on their vehicles, relentlessly shooting until they were out of range. Hong Lian watched closely, realizing that Zhang Yi was not to be underestimated. After reaching a safe area, Hong Lian took a moment to think. Their enemy had a sniper with extraordinary abilities and could even deflect missile strikes. He wasn't sure if it was the work of one person or two, but either way, these abilities were terrifying. At last, he understood how this small team had managed to challenge the Shirshan base. His thoughts were interrupted by Ting, his assistant, who asked what their next move would be. They had the firepower to destroy the base's walls, but they were still 7 kilometers away and didn't know how to get close. Hong Lian responded that advancing recklessly was not an option. It was better to let other bases pass first, drawing the sniper's fire and exhausting his abilities. He then contacted Wing Hai and asked for his location. Wing Hai replied that he hadn't arrived yet and asked if Hong Lian had already reached the battlefield. Hong Lian answered that he was still far but would arrive soon. While the base leaders schemed against each other to balance their losses, Zhang Yi seized the opportunity to launch another attack. Chun suggested that Zhang Yi eliminate as many mutants as possible while he and Uncle Yu attacked. Zhang Yi, as always, gave his best effort and expressed his trust in them to do the same. He then noted that the mutants who had survived this long couldn't be taken down by mere firearms. As for the weaker ones, he didn't even need to exert himself. Zhang Yi admitted that he had intentionally revealed his counterattack ability, forcing his enemies to be cautious when using heavy weapons. This way, the defenses would last longer. Without heavy weapons, breaching a 10-meter thick wall of ice and snow would be extremely difficult. With a sly grin, Zhang Yi declared that he eagerly awaited the next wave of attackers. Shortly after, Zhang Yi spotted the next group arriving, the snow cultists. He remarked that 3 major forces were already at the battlefield, with only King Pu's army yet to arrive. Uncle Yu then asked if Zhang Yi hadn't previously stated that the Snow Sect and King Pu's base were allies. If they also attacked, should they be considered enemies? Zhang Yi responded that although they were allies, if they approached his defensive line, they would still have to be eliminated. Uncle Yu seemed excited, eager to use the weapons he had prepared. Zhang Lian then arrived with his devoted followers, instructing them to be ready to attack at any moment. If Zhang Yi couldn't defend himself, he wasn't worthy of their support. If he failed, the Snow Sect would join the attackers to crush him. Meanwhile, King Pu's leader, Tian, was also making his way to the battlefield with his team. He was curious about Zhang Yi's request to join forces with the other factions. During the attack, Shinsin contacted Zhang Yi to inform him that troops were approaching from the direction of the mountain. Zhang Yi immediately recognized them as Tian's forces. He reassured Shinsin not to worry and to stay focused on the main enemy. As time passed, the combined assault began. Vehicles emerged before Zhang Yi, and he was prepared to face them. However, this time, the attacks came from multiple directions, making the situation increasingly difficult. Realizing the growing danger, Zhang Yi decided to reveal one of his trump cards. He quickly communicated with Shinsen, instructing him to activate the defense weapons. Without hesitation, Shinsen pressed a button, and in an instant, machine guns emerged from within the ice walls, unleashing a barrage of bullets, tens, even hundreds, at all enemy forces in the area. The sheer firepower of these weapons caused enemy vehicles to explode, creating total chaos among the opposing forces. Seeing this, Zhang Lian was overcome with fear. He had never seen weapons like these before. Xiao Honglian also felt uneasy. He was fully aware that all of Tianhai City's heavy weapons were stored at the Shirshan base. Now, he realized Zhang Yi had managed to steal them. However, Honglian quickly regained his composure and ordered his troops to spread out and keep advancing. He was convinced that the ice barrier was just an obstacle that could be easily destroyed. If they could get close enough to break through the defensive line, the invasion of the stronghold would become significantly easier. Meanwhile, Tian observed the escalating conflict. He decided to pretend to join the battle and instructed his followers to fire into the air. When one of his soldiers questioned the order, saying there were no enemies above, Tian struck the soldier's head and commanded him to follow orders without question. Tian reminded everyone that he was a man of his word. No one was to truly attack Zhang Yi's forces. On the battlefield, the flames of war intensified, and bodies of soldiers fell one after another. This prompted Hong Lian to contact the other leaders, informing them that Zhang Yi's firepower was too overwhelming and that he couldn't break through his defenses. Wing Hai suggested they work together to destroy the ice barrier. Hong Lian agreed, stating that if they managed to break through, they would win the battle, as Zhang Yi was weak in close combat. Wing Hai then proposed leading the charge on the defensive line while Hong Lian and his troops provided covering fire to divert attention, giving him a chance to break the ice barrier. Hong Lian accepted the plan and ordered his troops to launch a full-scale attack on Zhang Yi's defenses to create an opening for Wing Hai. Meanwhile, Wing Hai stepped out of his vehicle and activated his ice protection ability. He moved swiftly beneath the snow, swimming toward the ice barrier. Within seconds, he reached the barrier and shattered it with a single strike, thanks to the immense power of his ice ability. Chun Lei and Pa Manyu witnessed this unfold before them, realizing that an intense battle was about to begin. With the ice barrier destroyed, Wing Hai was now prepared to lead the invasion. Following his orders, his troops began advancing into the area. Wing Hai then placed his hands on the remaining ice wall and obliterated it instantly. Zhang Yi was shocked to see this, realizing that Wing Hai's power was far stronger than Chun Lei's. Chun Lei immediately ordered his followers to move forward. Sensing an impending threat, Wing Hai managed to dodge a deadly attack at the last second by shifting his head. However, he was not completely unscathed. The attack struck him, knocking him down. To his shock, the sword strike had penetrated his ice armor. He attempted to dive back into the snow, but Chun Lei intercepted him, forcing him out of hiding. At the same time, Lian swiftly launched another sword strike. Lian's speed was so incredible that Wing Hai couldn't evade in time and suffered another wound. Struggling, Wing Hai admitted that he had never encountered a swordsman of such skill within Zhang Yi's team. Previously, he had assumed that invading the stronghold would be easy after breaking the ice barrier. Now, realizing the challenge ahead, he decided to retreat. His primary goal had been to destroy the barrier, and he had already accomplished that. Seeing the growing number of enemy troops approaching, Lian chose to charge at them fearlessly. Despite Chun Lei's attempt to calm him down, Lian remained undeterred. Observing the situation, Zhang Yi realized that Lian's anger was fueled by his devotion to his disciples. He then instructed Chun Lei and Pa Manyu to let Lian fight as he wished while they focused on protecting the fortress walls. Hong Lian launched a fire attack, taking advantage of Zhang Yi's forces being distracted by Wei Dinghai's assault. He called on his troops to charge toward the ice barrier without hesitation, led by a werewolf with incredibly strong defenses. Chun quickly created a temporary ice barrier, while a mutant cat unleashed a vibration attack that confused the soldiers and prevented them from advancing, buying Chun more time to complete the barrier. At the same time, Pa Manyu seized the opportunity amid the chaos, grabbing his automatic machine gun and firing relentlessly like Rambo, leaving the enemy soldiers paralyzed. Meanwhile, Lian, consumed by rage, abandoned the ice barrier and began destroying everything in his path. Suddenly, he was caught off guard by a powerful and rapid claw attack. Despite the speed of the assault, Lian effortlessly defended himself with his sword. The attack came from an enraged werewolf who swore he would not let Lian cut down his followers like vegetables. Facing such a formidable opponent, Lian activated his rage transformation, maximizing his strength. The werewolf licked his lips, intrigued by Lian's power. Realizing he was facing someone as cold as ice, he decided to attack, believing that offense was the best defense. However, Lien remained still, waiting for the perfect moment to counterattack. When the opportunity arose, Lien struck, successfully severing the werewolf's arm, leaving him in shock at Lien's sheer power. Lien did not stop there, his piercing gaze locked onto his opponent as he unleashed a swift and decisive attack, ending the werewolf's life before he could react. Unbeknownst to others, Lien had been silently avenging his fallen disciples. Meanwhile, Pamanu ran out of bullets just as a strange mutant approached, wrapping around his body and restricting his movements. The mutant cat let out a powerful sonic attack that damaged the soldier's hearing. However, thanks to his healing ability and high pain tolerance, Pamanu seized the moment, capturing the rubber-bodied enemy. Before he could act further, a commanding voice echoed through the battlefield. Zhang Yi ordered everyone to retreat to the stronghold. Lien, carrying his trophy of victory, returned to the stronghold, followed by the others. In the distance, Zhang Yi observed the Snow Sect members standing still, their expressions serious and unreadable. Confused by their behavior, he ordered an attack on them. Several sect members were struck by gunfire until Zhang Yi created a barrier to shield them. Furious, Zhang Yi shouted that the time for action was near. He then commanded his forces to launch an assault. The soldiers charged into the stronghold, now shrouded in smoke. As Pamanu returned, he wondered whether they needed to head to the underground bunker. Zhang Yi reassured him that there was no need to rush, the stronghold's defenses were not easily breached. Just as they were speaking, the sound of approaching trucks interrupted their conversation. They turned to see an excavator advancing toward them. Zhang Yi immediately understood why the enemy was so confident about breaking through their defenses. Instead of panicking, he became even more excited. Grabbing a grenade, he expertly hurled it toward the enemy soldiers and the excavator, taking out numerous foes with just a few well-placed throws. With each explosion, he reinforced his stance. Just because the wall was breached did not mean the enemy could advance further. As he continued his bombardment, Zhang Yi noticed that the excavator was being operated by Wu Huiren. At that moment, he realized why the enemy had such confidence in breaking into the stronghold. As Zhang Yi attempted to throw another grenade to destroy the excavator, Chen Xingguan, the rubber-bodied mutant, enlarged himself to block the attack. The grenade bounced off his body, rendering Zhang Yi's strike ineffective. Shortly after, Wu Huiren maneuvered the excavator forward, targeting the weak point of the wall. With the machine now pressing against the stronghold, Hong Lian ordered all troops to attack Zhang Yi, ensuring he had no chance to interfere with Huiren and the excavator. Zhang Yi was startled when the stronghold's AI system issued an urgent alert. The wall was under attack and on the verge of collapse. He immediately asked how much time they had left. The system responded, only an hour and a half. On the first floor, the deafening sound of the excavator drilling into the wall echoed throughout the stronghold. Chun Lei turned to Zhang Yi and asked if it was the right time to head to the underground bunker. Meanwhile, Wing Hai and Xiao Honglian felt satisfied with their progress. They were now closer than ever to storming their enemy's greatest stronghold. Despite suffering heavy losses, they believed that if they could seize Zhang Yi's resources, the battle would be considered a victory. Just as their victory seemed certain, a member of the Snow Sect suddenly rushed toward their forces. Instead of attacking, he embraced the enemy soldiers, sharing his warmth in the freezing cold. This left Wing Hai and Lien stunned. Moments later, reports flooded in from their troops. Members of the Snow Sect were attacking them. Hearing this, Wing Hai began to realize that this war would be far more difficult than he had anticipated.